Salutations, respected viewers. Here I am in London, outside the Ministry of Defence, and behind me is a statue of Charles Gordon, General Gordon of the Royal Engineers. So who was he? Well, in the late 19th century, or perhaps early 20th century, I wouldn't have had to ask, because everybody in the United Kingdom would have known. He was held in very high regard indeed. So he was a British general who'd served in a number of conflicts in Crimea. He'd fought in India, he fought in China. That's why he had the nickname Chinese Gordon in the Taipang Rebellion, which was perhaps surprisingly a Christian-inspired rebellion by somebody who said that he was the Messiah. And it was a very bloody conflict, but I won't get into that. Although he was a fervent Christian, Gordon usually commanded non-Christian troops and had no difficulty inspiring loyalty in them. He's best known for fighting in the Sudan. You probably know where Egypt is, and Egypt expanded into the Sudan in the 19th century, all the way to the very south of Sudan, and indeed into what's now Uganda, Equatoria, as they then called Uganda. So the Egyptians are Sunni Muslims in about 90% of cases, and about 99% of Sudanese are Sunni Muslims. Well, perhaps there are a few animists or Christians, but the Christians are mostly South Sudan these days. Anyhow, he started to work for the Egyptian government. This is often overlooked. Gordon was the Sirdar of the Egyptian army. He was not in the British army at the end of his life. So the Mahdiist revolt began in Sudan. So that's when the Mahdi declared that he was the reincarnation of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, I think on the basis that he had a gap in the middle of his teeth. So people disliked the corruption and the irreligion of the Egyptian administration, which was lax in its religious observance, tolerated music and dancing at circumcision feasts, weddings and so forth. And it was said that the Turkish-influenced Egyptian upper class were more than partial to a bit of whiskey in the officers' mess. Anyway, Mahdi soon ambushed and overwhelmed many Egyptian troops. Many of these are actually Sudanese in Egyptian service. There wasn't an obvious distinction between who was Egyptian and who was Sudanese, because there wasn't really colour discrimination then. They were Arabic speaking, Sunni Muslims in most cases, and okay, there are some other indigenous languages in Sudan, but they were usually not written. All education was in Arabic. So the Khedive, or King of Egypt, wanted to regain control of Sudan, and then he hired Gordon to go down there, and Gordon got to Kharthoum, which is the capital, but however he was pretty soon surrounded and cut off by the Mahdiist troops. There were some forays against the Mahdiysts who were surrounding him, and he managed to defeat them a few times, but eventually there was one sortie too many, and some of his men on the sortie were killed. His forces were very weakened. And he sent messages to Egypt appealing for help. These came all the way back into the United Kingdom. People agitated to save Gordon. Very important thing is the Egyptians had outlawed slavery, which the Mahdists felt was the most outrageous intrusion upon their religious liberty. They of course had the right to kidnap, rape and murder people, as well as force them into servitude. So this was a moral cause here in the United Kingdom. Sermons were preached on many a Sunday saying that Gordon was a true soldier of Christ and the government was morally bound to rescue him. The Prime Minister at the time was William Ewart Gladstone, who believed in an ethical foreign policy, and he was reluctant to get involved in a conflict which had nothing to do with the UK. Gordon was a mercenary in a sense, and he put himself in harm's way, well, tough. One Briton was going to get killed. There's no reason why thousands of Britishers should get killed in an attempt to save him. It was not our affair. However, he was eventually forced by public opinion to take action. Some British troops were sent by way of Egypt, but they arrived there a little bit too late, and his dispatches had come saying, now mark this, if we're not relieved by such and such a date, we should be killed. But anyway, the Mahdists did storm Khartoum, and he reportedly met them on the stairs of his residence with a revolver in one hand and a sword in the other, and was cut to pieces in a scene memorably portrayed by Charlton Heston in a 1970s biopic. So you can see here the imagery of these mourning women here. A woman as though wearing a widow's veil, or cape more like. Right fears not might. Fortitude, faith. And it's got the names of some of his Chinese victories there, and other places he served. And it's a leaf pattern there, I'm not sure. Oh, is it like a thistle of Scotland? You can see perhaps Rose of England, the Irish shamrock. Oh, and a little water spout in case water lands in it. Laurel wreaths around his feet. Charity, justice, and justice with her sword with the weighing scales, blindfolded. There is a nude boy pointing to a book. well, no doubt he's being charitable towards this widow and her orphans. So that is Gordon, and help arrived too late. And William Ewart Gladstone had been known as the Grand Old Man, GOM, summed to MOG, murderer of Gordon, since he had not saved Gordon. Anyway, the British Army then did cooperate with the Egyptians, and they later liberated the Sudan and restored rightful government, putting the Mahdists to flight. Many Sudanese were anti-Mahdist and helped them. The Battle of Omdurman fought in 1898, that spelt doom for the Mahdists. Mahdi died very shortly after the death of Gordon, but his Khalifa, successor, carried on. So it wasn't just a cult of the personality. It lasted for quite a few more years. Indeed, his grandson and great-grandson were very prominent in Sudanese politics well into the 20th century. He'd had a splendid tomb constructed for himself, the Mahdi, though that would tend to go against the most puritanical aspects of Sunni Islam. It was then destroyed by Kitchener. So Field Marshal Lord Kitchener of Khartoum was the victor in 1898, and Churchill served at that battle at Omdurman, the last successful British cavalry charge. Kitchener had the British and the Egyptian flags flown there, and Sudan became an Anglo-Egyptian condominium, as in both jointly governing it, like that joint house thing. That's the Ministry of Defence behind me. It used to be known as the Ministry of War till the early 60s, then it got a more PC name. Well, that is General Gordon.